the underestimation. The Korvathian Empire had existed for 12,000 cycles, spanning across 47 star systems and controlling more than 6,000 worlds. Their ships moved through the void like silver serpents, carrying the weight of absolute authority. They had never met a species they could not subjugate, never encountered a civilization they could not absorb into their vast empire. Captain Zareth stood in the command center of the survey vessel Eternal Dominance. His 4 eyes focused on the holographic display before him. His gray skin reflected the blue light of the screens, and his tall, slender frame cast long shadows across the pristine floor. He had conducted surveys of 347 worlds during his long career. This would be number 348. The star system before him was unremarkable. A yellow dwarf sun, several rocky planets, gas giants in the outer orbits. Standard configuration. Nothing special. But the third planet from the sun had caught the attention of the automated probes. It showed signs of technological civilization. "Science, Officer Velenar, what do we have?" Zareth asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never been disobeyed. Velenar, a younger Korvathian with darker skin markings, manipulated the controls before him. Data streams filled the holographic space between them. The planet is designated as Terra by its inhabitants, who call themselves humans. It is a water world with approximately 70% of the surface covered by liquid oceans. The atmosphere is nitrogen-oxygen based, with high concentrations of oxygen. Gravity measures at 1.0 standard units. Zareth nodded slowly. Population? Approximately 8 billion individuals. They are concentrated in large settlements called cities, connected by primitive transportation networks. They have achieved basic spaceflight capability. Chemical propulsion only. They have visited their natural satellites several times, but have not established permanent off-world colonies. Technology level? Extremely primitive by our standards, Captain. They have developed nuclear fission, basic computing systems, and crude communication networks. Their fastest vessels would require decades to reach even the nearest star to their system. They have no faster-than-light capability, no energy shield technology, no plasma weapons. They still use projectile-based firearms and explosive devices for warfare. Zareth made a dismissive gesture with his elongated fingers. Another infant species. What is their biological composition? Velenar brought up detailed scans of human anatomy. The holographic display showed a bipedal creature, shorter and more compact than the Korvathians. Carbon-based life forms, quite fragile by our measurements. They have a single heart, limited regenerative capabilities, and require constant nourishment and rest. Their lifespan averages only 80 to 90 cycles. They are remarkably weak. Captain, a single Korvathian warrior could overpower 5 humans without difficulty. The captain studied the images with mild interest. The humans looked soft, vulnerable. Their bodies lacked the reinforced skeletal structure of the Korvathians. They had no natural armor, no enhanced sensory organs. They were, by every measurement, an inferior species. What about their world? Is it suitable for colonization? Velenar hesitated for a moment before responding. The planet is challenging, Captain. It experiences extreme environmental variations. Temperature ranges from -60 to +50 degrees on the standard scale. The tectonic plates are highly active, causing frequent earthquakes. Weather patterns are violent and unpredictable. The planet is home to numerous predatory species and microscopic organisms that cause disease. By our standards, Terra will be classified as a hostile environment. Zareth frowned. Yet the humans thrive there. They do, Captain. In fact, they have spread to every continent and climate zone on their world. They live in frozen wastelands, burning deserts, dense jungles, and high mountain regions. They have adapted to environments that would kill most species we have encountered. Curious, Zareth murmured. Perhaps they are hardier than they appear, but it matters little. Their technology is primitive, their military capability negligible. This world will make an excellent resource extraction site. The water alone is valuable, and preliminary scans show significant deposits of rare minerals. He turned to his communications officer. Send a message to the High Command. We have located a Category 6 world, suitable for annexation. Request authorization to proceed with standard first contact protocols. The response came within hours. Transmit across the vast distances of space through quantum communication rays. The High Command authorized immediate annexation procedures. Terra will become another jewel in the Korvathian crown. Zareth ordered eternal dominance into Terra's orbit. The massive vessel, 3 kilometers in length, descended to the atmosphere like a falling moon. It made no attempt at stealth. The Korvathians wanted the humans to see them, to understand the futility of resistance. As expected, the human detection systems identified the vessel immediately. Primitive aircraft scrambled from their bases, circling the ship at a respectful distance. Zareth watched them on his monitors with amusement. The human flying machines were powered by burning refined petroleum. They moved through the air using mechanical wings and crew jet engines. It was almost endearing, like watching children play with toys. The eternal dominance positioned itself above a large human city. Zareth had chosen carefully. The city served as a gathering place for representatives from multiple human nations. It was called New York, and it housed an organization humans referred to as the United Nations. Broadcast a message, Zareth commanded. All frequencies, all languages. The ship's artificial intelligence had analyzed human communication patterns and compiled a comprehensive database of their languages. The message went out simultaneously in hundreds of tongues, ensuring every human on the planet would understand. People of Terra, this is Captain Zareth of the Korvathian Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our civilization. You will surrender all governmental authority to Korvathian administration. Your resources will be cataloged and extracted as needed. Your population will be relocated to designated zones to facilitate efficient resource management. Compliance will result in minimal casualties. Resistance will result in extinction. You have 48 hours to respond with your acceptance. Zareth settled back in his command chair, satisfied. The message was clear, the terms non-negotiable. He had delivered similar ultimatums to dozens of species. Some accepted immediately. Others attempted futile resistance before inevitably surrendering. None had ever succeeded in defying the Korvathian Empire. The human response came within 30 minutes. It was not what Zareth expected. Every major human government transmitted simultaneously. Their messages coordinated with remarkable precision. The spokesperson was a woman from the United Nations, her voice steady and calm. Captain Zareth, we have received your message. We require time to discuss your proposal among all the nations of Earth. We request a meeting between your representatives and ours to negotiate terms. We ask that you remain in orbit and take no hostile action while we deliberate. Zareth was surprised by the composure in her voice. Most species responded with panic or worship when confronted with superior technology. The humans sounded almost diplomatic. They wished to negotiate, Velenar observed, as if they have any leverage. Zareth allowed himself a thin smile. Let them talk among themselves. It will make no difference. Grant them their 48 hours. It will give them time to accept the inevitable. But as the hours passed, Zareth began to notice something unusual. The humans were not panicking. Their communication networks showed no signs of chaos or disorder. Instead, they were coordinating. Military forces across the planet began mobilizing with disturbing efficiency. Naval vessels moved into strategic positions. Aircraft carriers repositioned. Missile batteries emerged from hidden silos. Satellites changed their orbits. Every human nation, despite their historical conflicts and differences, was moving in perfect synchronization. Velenar brought this to the captain's attention. Sir, the humans are preparing for conflict. They are moving weapons and troops into position around the globe. Zareth studied the tactical displays. They are posturing, attempting to appear strong. It is a natural response. They will realize the futility of their actions soon enough. But there was something in the patterns that troubled him. The humans were not acting like a species in panic. They were acting like a species that had done this before. A junior science officer named Thalrix had been conducting deeper analysis of human history and culture. He approached the captain with obvious hesitation. "Captain, I have been reviewing the human database. There is something you should see." Zareth gestured for him to proceed. Thalrix brought up historical records on the holographic display. Images of human warfare filled the space. Burning cities, destroyed landscapes, weapons of terrible power. The humans have been at war with each other for their entire recorded history, Captain. They have fought thousands of conflicts, developing increasingly sophisticated methods of killing. 70 cycles ago, they developed nuclear weapons and used them against each other. Since then, they have built tens of thousands of these devices, each capable of destroying a city. Zareth waved dismissively. Many species develop nuclear capability before achieving space travel. It is not unusual. But, Captain, they aimed these weapons at their own cities. For decades, they lived under the threat of complete self-annihilation. They built enough weapons to destroy their entire planet multiple times over. And they simply continued living. They raised families, built civilizations, advanced their technology, all while knowing they could destroy themselves at any moment. For the first time, Zareth felt a flicker of unease. "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting that we may have misunderstood what kind of species we're dealing with, sir. The humans did not develop weapons because they were threatened by external forces. They developed them to fight each other. Their entire evolutionary history is one of conflict, adaptation, and survival. Their planet is hostile because they evolved to thrive in hostility." Zareth considered this. He looked again at the tactical displays, at the coordinated military movements across the planet. The humans were not panicking. They were preparing. The 48 hours passed. The human response came from the United Nations, transmitted on all frequencies, so the entire planet could hear. "Captain Zareth, the nations of Earth have reached a unanimous decision. We reject your terms. We will not surrender our world, our freedom, or our future. We ask that you leave our system peacefully. If you choose to remain, we will defend ourselves with every resource at our disposal. This is our only warning." The command center fell silent. Every Korvathian present stared at the display in disbelief. Zareth felt something he had not experienced in centuries of service. Confusion. "They are refusing?" Velenar whispered. "They are actually refusing?" Zareth straightened in his chair, his composure returning. "Then they will learn the price of defiance. Prepare a demonstration strike. Target an uninhabited area, somewhere visible to their major population centers. We will show them the power they dare to oppose." But as the weapon systems came online, Zareth noticed something on the tactical display that made his blood run cold. Every human military installation on the planet had activated targeting systems. Hundreds of missile silos had opened. Naval vessels had armed their weapons. Aircraft had taken flight. The humans were not waiting to see what the Korvathians would do. They were preparing to strike first. Thalrix spoke quietly. "Captain, I believe we have made a grave error in judgment." Zareth did not respond. He was watching the display, watching 8 billion humans coordinate for war, and for the first time in his long career, he wondered if the Korvathian Empire had finally encountered something it could not conquer. The holographic display showed real-time footage from the surface. In cities across Terra, humans were not fleeing or hiding. They were standing in the streets, looking up at the alien vessel, their faces showing not fear but determination. One human held a sign that the ship's cameras captured and translated. It read simply, "You picked the wrong planet." Zareth gave the order to charge weapons, but his hands were trembling. The demonstration strike would proceed as planned. And then the Korvathians would discover exactly what these fragile, primitive, impossible humans were truly capable of. The war for Terra was about to begin, and the galaxy would never forget what happened next. The revelation, the demonstration strike, was meant to be simple. A single pulse from the Eternal Dominance's primary weapon array would vaporize a small uninhabited island in the Pacific Ocean. The resulting explosion would be visible from space, a clear message of Korvathian power. Zareth selected his target carefully, an isolated piece of rock far from any human population centers. He wanted to demonstrate superiority, not commit genocide. "Weapons charged, Captain," the tactical officer reported. "Target locked. awaiting your command." Zareth took a breath, his four eyes scanning the displays one final time. The humans had gone silent after their ejection. Their military forces remained mobilized, waiting. Perhaps the demonstration would bring them to their senses. Perhaps they would understand that resistance was meaningless. "Fire," he commanded. The beam lands down from orbit, a column of concentrated energy that struck the island with the force of a small star. The rock exploded in a brilliant flash, sending a mushroom cloud of vaporized stone and superheated steam into the atmosphere. The shock wave rippled across the ocean, visible from thousands of kilometers away. For 3 seconds, there was silence. Then the humans responded. Every missile silo on the planet opened simultaneously. Hundreds of rockets climbed into the sky, their primitive chemical engines leaving trails of fire across the atmosphere. Naval vessels launched cruise missiles from the oceans. Submarines released their payloads from beneath the waves. Mobile launchers fired from hidden positions in forests and mountains. Within 60 seconds, over 2,000 missiles were climbing toward the eternal dominance. "Defensive systems active," the tactical officer shouted. "Incoming projectiles, multiple vectors." Zareth watched in stunned disbelief as the tactical display filled with red markers. The missiles were crewed by Korvathian standards, guided by simple computers and powered by chemical reactions. The ship's energy shield should stop them easily. The first wave of missiles reached the ship and detonated against the shields. The Korvathians had expected this. What they had not expected was the sheer volume. Each explosion was weak individually, but there were so many of them. The shields flickered as they absorbed impact after impact, energy reserves draining faster than the reactors could replenish them. "Shields at 70%, the tactical officer reported, his voice rising with concern. 65%. They are overwhelming the defensive grid through sheer numbers. Evasive maneuvers." Zareth commanded, "Take us to higher orbit." But the humans had anticipated this. As the eternal dominance began to climb, a second wave of missiles arrived, these ones faster and more sophisticated. They tracked the ship's movement, adjusting their trajectories with surprising precision. Several pierced through the weakened shields and struck the hull directly. The explosions were small, barely scratching the reinforced armor. But they were hits. Actual hits. On a Korvathian capital ship. It was unthinkable. "Damage report." Zareth demanded. "Minor hull breaches on deck 7 through 9. External sensors damaged. One weapons array offline. Shields regenerating but under continuous assault. Captain, they are not stopping. More missiles are launching." Zareth looked at the tactical display in horror. The humans were emptying their arsenals. Every weapon they had built over decades of Cold Wars and arms races was being thrown at the single ship overhead. It was insane. It was wasteful. It was working. Return fire, destroy their launch sites. The Eternal Dominance's weapons arrays came online, targeting the sources of the missile attacks. Energy beams lanced down to the surface, striking military installations with pinpoint accuracy. Bases exploded in brilliant flashes. Launch facilities were reduced to molten craters. Entire military complexes vanished in seconds. But the missiles kept coming. For every launcher destroyed, 2 more activated from hidden positions. The humans had dispersed their forces, hidden their weapons, prepared for exactly this scenario. They had spent decades planning for a war against an enemy with superior technology, and they had learned well. Velenaar's voice was tight with stress. "Captain, we are detecting aircraft approaching. Hundreds of them." Aircraft. Zareth could not believe it. They're sending atmospheric fighters against a starship? But there they were on the sensors. Jets and bombers climbing toward the Eternal Dominance, carrying missiles and bombs designed to fight other aircraft. It should have been laughable. It was not. The human pilots knew they could not survive. Their aircraft were not designed for space combat. But they climbed anyway, pushing their machines to maximum altitude, firing their weapons before their engines starved of oxygen. Some pilots aimed their entire aircraft at the ship when their weapons were expended, turning themselves into guided missiles. The Korvathians shot them down by the dozens, but they kept coming, wave after wave, human after human choosing certain death for the chance to damage the invaders. What is wrong with these creatures? Vel and AR shouted. Why do they not retreat? Thalrix was working frantically at his station, pulling up more data on human history. Because this is what they do, he said quietly. I have been studying their wars. At a place called Thermopylae, 300 humans held off an army of thousands. At Stalingrad, they fought in frozen ruins for months. At Iwo Jima, they died by the thousands rather than surrender a single island. They did not know how to quit. On the surface, the Korvathians had deployed ground forces to secure key strategic positions. 5,000 elite warriors in powered armor had landed at various points around the globe, equipped with energy weapons and personal shields. They were the finest soldiers in the Empire, veterans of 100 campaigns. They expected terrified primitives armed with gunpowder weapons. What they got was hell. The first Korvathian squad to engage human forces was in a city called Moscow. They landed in a public square, their arrival announced by the thunder of their drop pods. Citizens fled as the armored soldiers emerged, their weapons charging with deadly light. The squad leader broadcast a message demanding surrender. The humans answered with a wall of gunfire. Bullets ricocheted off Korvathian armor, doing no damage. The squad leader almost laughed. Then a rocket-propelled grenade struck his shield generator, overloading it. Before he could react, a human soldier had climbed onto his back, jamming an explosive device into the armor joint at his neck. The resulting explosion killed them both. The battle devolved into chaos. The humans did not fight with honor or strategy. They fought like cornered animals, using every advantage their home terrain provided. They attacked from buildings and sewers, from rooftops and underground tunnels. They used their vehicles as battering rams. They threw Molotov cocktails that splashed burning fuel across energy shields, blinding sensors, and forcing the Korvathians to fight visually. In Tokyo, a squad of Korvathian soldiers found themselves surrounded in a narrow street. The humans had collapsed buildings on both ends, trapping them. Then they brought up artillery and simply pounded the position for 3 hours straight. When the bombardment ended, there were no survivors. In New York, human forces evacuated civilians from a city block, then rigged the entire area with explosives. When Korvathian troops entered, they detonated everything at once. 50 warriors died in a single coordinated ambush. The reports flooded into the eternal dominance. Casualties mounted, not just injuries, but deaths. Korvathian soldiers were dying. It had not happened in 3 centuries. The Empire's military had become so dominant that combat deaths were almost unknown. Now they were losing warriors by the hour. Pull back the ground forces, Zarth ordered, his voice hollow. Recall all troops to the ship. Captain, we still have operational units on the surface. If we withdraw now, do it. We are losing this engagement. As the ground forces retreated to their drop pods, the humans pursued. They did not allow the Korvathians to leave peacefully. They attacked the extraction points, destroyed landing craft, and fired on retreating soldiers. The withdrawal became a rout, with Korvathian warriors fleeing for their lives from primitives with chemical weapons. The eternal dominance continued to climb toward high orbit, its shields flickering under continuous bombardment. Zareth had lost count of how many missiles had struck his ship. Thousands. Tens of thousands. The humans seemed to have an inexhaustible supply. Then something new appeared on the sensors. A human spacecraft launched from a facility they called Cape Canaveral. It was barely more than a tin can with a rocket attached, primitive beyond measure. But it was carrying a payload, and it was heading directly for the eternal dominance. What is that? Zareth demanded. Thalrix analyzed the data, and his face went pale. Captain, it is carrying a nuclear warhead. They are attempting to detonate an atomic weapon against our hull. Shoot it down. The defensive systems targeted the approaching spacecraft, but at that moment, another wave of missiles arrived from the surface, forcing the weapons array to divide its attention. The human craft continued its approach, a suicide mission piloted by a crew who knew they would not survive. Zareth watched in helpless fury as the primitive spacecraft closed the distance. At the last moment, the defensive systems locked on and fired, destroying the vessel in a flash of light. But the nuclear warhead detonated anyway, close enough to the ship that the electromagnetic pulse scrambled several systems. Multiple system failures, the engineering officer reported. Communications down. Sensors intermittent. Shield generators need manual reset. Do it. Get those shields back online. While the crew worked frantically to restore systems, the humans launched their largest strike yet. Every remaining missile on the planet fired simultaneously, creating a swarm of metal and explosives that rose toward the crippled starship like a plague of mechanical locusts. The Corvathians could not stop them all. Dozens of missiles penetrated the defensive perimeter and struck home. The Eternal Dominance shuddered under the impacts. Armor buckled. Hull plating tore. Atmosphere vented from breech compartments. Crew members died at their stations as bulkheads collapsed and systems overloaded. The mighty warship, pride of the Corvathian fleet, was being torn apart by weapons that should not have been capable of threatening it. Casualties mounting, someone screamed. We need to jump to hyperspace. We cannot, the navigation officer responded. The drive systems are not charged. We need another 10 minutes. We do not have 10 minutes. Zareth made the decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. All remaining power to shields. Abandon damage sections. Seal the breaches. Prepare for emergency jump the moment we are able. As the crew struggled to keep the ship functional, Zareth pulled up the visual feeds from the surface. He needed to understand what they were facing. The images showed humans in the streets of their cities, watching the battle overhead. They were not celebrating. They were not fleeing. They were watching with grim determination, as if this was exactly what they had expected. One camera focused on a single human, an old man standing on a rooftop. He was holding a rifle, pointing it uselessly at the starship far above. His weapon could not possibly reach that high, could not possibly damage the ship even if it did. But he stood there anyway, firing round after round into the sky, refusing to accept defeat. That image crystallized everything for Zareth. These humans were not fighting because they thought they could win. They were fighting because surrender was not in their nature. They would die before they knelt. They would destroy themselves before they accepted subjugation. The hyperspace drive finally charged. Jump now, Zareth commanded. The Eternal Dominance tore a hole in reality and fled, leaving the Sol system behind. As space folded around them, Zareth took one last look at the small blue planet that had wounded his pride and his ship. Terra hung in space like a jewel, beautiful and deadly. The humans were already rebuilding, already planning, already preparing for the next encounter. They had tasted victory, and they would not forget it. The journey back to Corvathian space took 3 days. The Eternal Dominance limped home with a quarter of its crew dead and its hull scarred by primitive weapons. News of the defeat spread through the Empire like wildfire. The Corvathians, who had conquered thousands of worlds, had been driven away by a species that could not even leave its own star system. The High Command convened an emergency council. Zareth presented his report, holding nothing back. He showed them the battle footage, the casualty lists, the tactical analysis. He explained how the humans had fought with ferocity and determination that no Corvathian had anticipated.